9 to 5, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. For most of the working world, it's the shape of a normal life. So ordinary, it feels less like a choice and more like a law of nature. Like gravity or the tides. But it isn't a law of nature, it's a number. And like every number on a clock, somebody chose it. The strange part isn't that we work this way. The strange part is why. And that the people who fought hardest to give us the 8-hour day might not recognize what we've done with it. So let's do what we always do here. Let's pull the thread. For almost all of human history, work didn't have a schedule. It had a sun. You worked when there was light and a harvest to bring in, and you stopped when there wasn't. Time was something the world handed you. Then, the factory took that away. Inside a factory, the machines set the pace, and the machines didn't care about sunsets. For the first time, work ran on the clock, and the clock could be cruel. In the mid-1800s, a 10 to 16-hour day was normal, 6 days a week, 70 hours or more, for $1 or $2. And out of that, somebody had a quietly radical idea. His name was Robert Owen. He was a Welsh mill owner, which makes the idea stranger still because it cost him money. In 1817, Owen proposed that a day could be cut into 3 equal parts. 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest. Read that again, because it's easy to miss how bold it was. Owen wasn't just asking for shorter shifts. He was saying that a third of your day, 8 whole hours, should simply belong to you, not to the factory, not to survival, to you. That idea took almost a century to win. And it didn't win quietly. Workers built a whole movement around it, and they had a song. Its chorus became the rallying cry of a generation. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. Listen to that last line. Not 8 hours for more chores, not 8 hours for a second job, 8 hours for what we will, for whatever you choose. That was the dream. A slice of the day with no owner. On the 1st of May, 1886, hundreds of thousands of workers across America stopped work on a single day to demand it. Some of them never came home. It's why much of the world still marks the 1st of May. So keep this in mind as we go. The 8-hour day was not a gift from above. It was won. By the early 20th century, the dream had a slogan, a song, and a body count. What it didn't have yet was a factory big enough to make it the standard. That came next, and the man who delivered it wasn't a dreamer at all. In 1913, Henry Ford perfected the moving assembly line. It was a marvel. It cut the time to build a Model T from around 12.5 hours to about 90 minutes. It was also miserable to work on. The line never stopped. The tasks were tiny and endless, and people quit in droves. How many? Ford's turnover rate hit roughly 370%. Read that slowly. To keep his factory staffed, Ford was effectively replacing his entire workforce 3 to 4 times every year. It's not a culture problem. That's a bleeding wound in the books. So on the 5th of January 1914, Ford and his deputy James Couzens announced a fix that stunned the world: $5 a day for an 8-hour shift. The old rate had been $2.34 for 9 hours. Ford had more than doubled the pay and cut the hours. The next morning, around 10,000 people showed up at the gates hoping for a job. Newspapers called it a miracle. The Wall Street Journal called Ford a class traitor. But here's the detail that gets left out of the hero story. It wasn't charity, and it came with strings. The full $5 was technically profit sharing, and to collect all of it, you had to qualify. Ford created something called the Sociological Department, whose inspectors visited workers' homes to check whether they drank, whether the house was clean, whether they lived the way Ford thought they should. Behave, and you got the whole $5. The 8-hour day arrived wrapped in surveillance, and it worked spectacularly. Turnover collapsed. Within 2 years, Ford's profits doubled, and the workers, now paid well enough, could afford to buy the very cars they were building. Ford hadn't just bought loyalty, he'd built his own customers. In 1926, he went further and cut the week from 6 days to 5. The weekend, the actual 2-day weekend you're probably looking forward to right now, is partly something Henry Ford handed down for business reasons. And in 1938, the United States wrote it into law. 40 hours with overtime past that. So by the middle of the century, the box was built. 8 hours, 5 days. A dream from a mill owner, paid for by a movement, and standardized by a man solving a turnover problem, designed, start to finish, around the factory floor. A place where one more hour really did mean one more car. The obvious question is whether that box still fits work that looks nothing like a factory. And the obvious answer is no. But the obvious answer, it turns out, is hiding something. Here's the tidy conclusion almost everyone reaches. The 9 to 5 was built for assembly lines. Most of us don't work on assembly lines, therefore it's an outdated cage, and we should break out. And there's real evidence for that. Knowledge work isn't measured in hours the way a Model T was. Nobody's counting how many spreadsheets roll off the line at 4:59. Sit with that view long enough and the 8-hour day starts to look like a costume we never took off. But the box has been tested before, and the result is not what the tidy story predicts. In 1930, the cereal company Kellogg did something almost no one dares to. It cut the workday from 8 hours to 6, 4 shifts instead of 3. More people employed, everyone home earlier. At first, workers loved it. And it wasn't just leisure. Within 2 years, many were earning in 6 hours what they used to earn in 8. It went so well that the United States nearly passed a national 6-hour day law. And then something quietly remarkable happened. The workers drifted back. Not all at once, but steadily, until by the late 1950s, most of them had chosen to return to the 8-hour day. Nobody marched them back in. No boss forced them. They wanted the extra pay more than they wanted the extra time. The historian who tracked them down put it starkly. The pull of more money had become overwhelming, and time off no longer felt like progress. The free hours Robert Owen dreamed of, the ones people had marched and died for, were handed to these workers, and many of them handed them right back. One detail stays with you. The workers who held on to the 6-hour day the longest, well into the 1980s, were mostly women. The people with the least room to give up time were, in the end, the ones who guarded it most fiercely. So the fork in the road isn't simply a system traps us. Sometimes the cage has an open door, and we look at it, weigh time against money, and choose to stay. The 9 to 5 survives, not only because it was imposed, but because, offered the alternative, an awful lot of people have picked the paycheck. Step back, and 3 things are true at once. 1. The 8-hour day was genuine progress, a humane limit, fought for and won, in an era when work could eat a person whole. 2. It was made standard by an industrialist solving a very specific factory problem for a kind of work most of us no longer do. 3. And every time people have been offered fewer hours since, from Kellogg in the 1930s to the 4-day-week trials running right now, where most companies that try it keep it and workers report far less burnout, the response has been split. Some never want to go back. Others quietly trade the time away for more pay. Both happen. Both are us. Remember, the old dream had 3 parts: 8 hours to work, 8 to rest, and 8 for what we will. We built the first 2 into law and habit. The third part, the free third, the entire point of the whole fight, we left up to ourselves. Which may be why the real question was never whether the 9 to 5 still fits the work. It's the question those Kellogg workers answered without meaning to. The one the clock can't answer for you. When the hours are finally handed back to you, what would you actually do with them?